Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Grace Gabs. This is Shonda Schaefer, and I'm honored and blessed to be the CEO of Grace. And today I'm super excited. We have a wonderful new guest, a dear friend of mine and of our community, Representative Giovanni Capriglione. So welcome. Thank you for taking your time. You've got to be so busy.
Thanks, Shonda. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate doing this. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure out the Zoom stuff along with everybody else, so we'll get there.
It's launching us into a whole new world, isn't it? Probably kicking and screaming.
Some positives and negatives in doing all this.
Exactly. Well, tell me what you have been working on. I know you've been super busy. You've been looking out for our community. So tell me what's going on.
Well, yeah, so first and foremost, we're in the middle of this pandemic, and all of us are absolutely thankful for those are first responders, right? Which today not only is fire and police and EMT, but also our healthcare workers and folks like you at Grace and so on, who are there helping the individuals who have the most need. For myself, obviously, the state government is on full cylinders right now, working with our feds and our locals, with healthcare, with hospitals, with nonprofits all over the state as we're working on this issue. For myself, I work on the budget, so I'm the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, and it was a different job 8 weeks ago than it is now. There's a lot of issues, obviously, with the economy, as obviously people are home and they should stay home, but that right now is causing a lot of problems for the economy. Whether that's just sales tax revenues, you've all seen our restaurants that have been hit and so on. Well, the state pretty much gets its money from two sources, which is sales taxes, which includes things like folks who are traveling at DFW Airport and so on, but also oil and gas, which has been the second unfortunate part of this that has dropped, which is we've seen just negative demand in some cases for oil and gas. What I used to do before all this was I'd probably be down in Austin once or twice a week, working with our staff, working with obviously the other elected officials and others. But today that's been replaced by Zoom and by teleconference calls here. The Capitol is closed, which, when I go back and I'm gonna look back at this, just thinking about that beautiful building, and it's closed to the public now, just shows how big of a deal this was. But a lot of what we're doing is trying to figure out how to get money that we're getting either from the federal government or from others and go to very critical needs, whether that's the Texas Workforce Commission, trying to go and make sure that people will eventually be able to get their calls in and do all of that stuff, but make sure that they get money, working with nonprofits and pantries and food pantries all over the state, working with our Department of Public Safety and our emergency management teams, and my old desk mate. So when we sit at the Capitol, we sit in our desks, and my desk mate is Dr. Zerwas. And Dr. Zerwas is now in charge of the hospital supply workforce. So he's been kind of leading the efforts to make sure we have enough PPE and so on. So communicating with those folks to make sure that we're all ready. And then obviously working with constituents like you at Grace and others having trouble either making rent, paying their electricity, trying to get their business back up, trying to apply for the for the Paycheck Protection Program. There's just so much stuff going on while most people are not going anywhere.
I love it. Yeah, we keep talking about all this free time we have, and I don't know about you, but my free time has gotten sucked up very fast. One of the things I want to mention, and I don't know if anybody who's watching this would even have any idea, so I want to take a second to acknowledge you and the commitment you've made to our community, the community you represent statewide. But we were talking a little bit earlier about how you pulled us together. You pulled several kind of community leaders together. I don't even remember the date, but it was very early on. In fact, I was still sitting in a restaurant when you called, hey, can you meet? So that's how long ago it was. But we got together and I don't know that we really, well, I know that we didn't have any idea how big this was going to get, but I want to acknowledge, because I don't know that that everybody recognizes how quick you were to respond and how fast you were to just start thinking about how this could affect our community. And I'm talking about our little community, but certainly you're responsible for this entire state. So I want to acknowledge that and thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you, and thank you for obviously being a part of it. We knew that you would be on the front lines as well. I mean, you're right. At the time, it was still this thing: is this really going to happen? It's happening in other countries, and I felt even then. I know a lot of us did. It was like, well, we might as well be ready in case this is something. And if it's not, oh, at least we get to hang out on a Saturday morning, 6 feet apart from one another. But unfortunately, you know, it turned out to be a big deal. Obviously, we had superintendents there, we had chambers there, we had elected officials from all over the district, and the good news is I think we were kind of ready, but more importantly, the folks in our community are just, you know, top tier, right? I mean, we're there to help them, we're there to serve them, but our community is just incredible, and the way that they've been able to handle this has just been super impressive. So thankful for the opportunity to keep doing that.
You know, and hindsight is going to be so funny as we move through this whole thing, because I'm looking back thinking about what was I thinking back then. And
right.
you mentioned the superintendents were in that meeting, the chambers were there, the mayor, the cities, and everybody was kind of saying, well, what if it turns out like this? And now that's exactly what we're looking at. So.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I think at that time schools weren't even closed yet, right? I mean, we were just still like, okay, we know something's coming. And you know, that was the last meeting I had in person.
My last interaction with anybody.
We'll have to have an after pandemic reunion.
That's right. I love it. Well, I thank you so much for everything you're doing and for the update. And in particular with GRACE, you have been such an advocate for what we're doing. And I was kind of giving you an update on how GRACE has been responding to the families that are really very vulnerable. I would like to say most vulnerable, but today that's a huge population. But certainly those people who are vulnerable before all of this, you know, those that are kind of our working class, the bread and butter of our community, and of course, in the area that you represent, of course, hospitality is a major industry, and those are the folks that were working in those communities. So sure. That's kind of who we've been working for. But I just appreciate you kind of lending your support to the work sure. that we do in those communities.
Well, you know, and you know, when you talk about that group, travel and tourism and hospitality and so on, obviously part of our my district and our area includes the DFW airport, right? And you know, my daughter is one of those people that can't get her driver's license because she's 16 but can't go through the deal. So we've been practicing driving, you know, staying in our car but driving around. So we go to the airport and there's nobody there. Right? And it's probably not somewhere I would go on her first time normally, to the airport with all. But it's empty. Seeing the hotels that are closed in our area, seeing, you know, even things like movie theaters. We get our updates, and so what was probably around 2.2 million flights per day a year ago is down to 90,000 people flying per day. Something like this is a bizarre stat, but last year at this time for the week for the box office was $198 million in box office receipts. Last week was $3,500. Oh. Which sounds like just one soda can and one of those Jungle bars, but it's just, we've seen that just drop off so much. But, you know, the more I think about this, and I'm sure this is true for a lot of people, this is obviously a terrible disease. We all know someone or know someone that may have been afflicted by it or worse, passed away from it. We know the negative consequences to the economy. We felt that. We've seen people struggle financially, and that's resulted in everything from depression to stress to, in some cases, even worse. But, you know, when we look back at this, we also have to think about some of the positive things that have happened, right? The ability to go and see how well our community gets together. In my own personal case, I've had the chance to spend more time with my daughters than I've ever been able to spend before. You always think about how busy you are, and, you know, God has a plan and God has a purpose. And it's like, hey, you've been busy. You're now going to hang out every day, every minute. And I get just so much quality time. And I know for a lot of folks, it's been on the positive side, an opportunity to reconnect. And so we'll be out of this hopefully pretty soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are some silver linings. I got to say, doing the work I do, sadly, I get to hear some pretty horrific stories. And you touched on some of the issues that we've been dealing with. And I mean, economically, yes, people are stressed. They can't pay rent. They can't put food on the table, and we can assist in those areas. But our mental health capacity it was stressed before all of this in terms of providers. And so we are seeing a lot of, you know, unfortunately, child abuse, child neglect, domestic violence, things of that nature, which just are just heightened with all of this together time.
Yeah, right.
It's a good thing for healthy relationships. It can be a not so great thing when you've already started in an unhealthy relationship. But you're right, we're going to get through it. And the good news is, even though I get to see all of those kind of horrifying situations, I also get to see all the amazing things. I mean, this community, it's been like, it's like a landslide of people wanting to help. And it's so hard to tell them, I can't have you volunteer today, but please don't forget about us because we're going to need you when we open. But contributions, creative ways that people have found to touch their neighbors. And that's pretty inspiring.
Right, and I guess it's a good opportunity to plug in, and for a lot of our nonprofits, at the same time that they're having to do more, seeing less revenue coming in. And I know that on North Texas Giving Day, which is coming up on May 5th, I'll be making a donation. I know others will as well to GRACE to make sure that we keep that up. I know you're had events, you're going to have events maybe that are going to be minimized or canceled or whatever. You're still going to have all the same expenses, if not more, as before. So, I would just ask other people to do the same, is to donate to GRACE, to donate on North Texas Giving Day. We got out of this, but it's through the grace of God, and also because of the help of all of our friends and families and neighbors. And so it's an opportunity for us to just remember that. I was thinking when we were having the conversation about a month ago, we talked about kind of, should you call it canceling or suspending or postponing and all that kind of stuff. But at some point, there's going to be a lot of people reopening, and people are going to pick and choose. And I know there are some quality organizations like GRACE that have been here before and will be here next time. And we just want to be able to keep helping those folks, because once that light switch comes back on and we're all allowed to go back to work and cut our hair and maybe shave and all the other kind of stuff, there's still going to be people trying to make that next rent or that next mortgage payment.
Well, I appreciate that. And you're exactly right. I think, one of the first things we looked at is how are we going to make sure that this doesn't bring us to our knees, and not knowing what the future held, we weren't sure, and at that point, and I got to say, in the 35 plus year history of GRACE, it's always been, we do what we're expected to do. We do the best we can do. And then the rest is in God's hands. And I will tell you, it's been my experience in the last several years that he takes care of the caregivers and the people who are doing that. And so we've been very blessed, and certainly still struggling. We still don't know what the future is, but I have confidence. Great. I have confidence in our leaders, and I have confidence in our community, and most importantly, I have confidence that God will show us the way, whatever that's supposed to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's ending on a good note. We're getting closer and closer. We're seeing that the virus. I mean, the reality is what we started to do a month ago has shown that we can reduce the number of people who are getting it. I know a lot of people are anxious. We're all anxious to go about our day. I think, the president and our county judges and the governor and everyone, we're looking at the data, we're looking at the science behind all of this. We don't want to have to do this again. We don't want this to flare up. So we're getting to the point where once we see those cases decline, you'll start seeing probably places in Texas, maybe not DFW right away, just because we're still kind of pretty dense here. But eventually, pretty soon, we'll all be able to get out of this, and hopefully, as the science of creating vaccines and better health care and cures possibly for this, we should be ready. I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. Big party. I like the way you think. Yeah, we're gonna get back together, big reunions, big celebrations. So I do miss that personal touch, but we'll get back to it. Awesome. I appreciate you so much. I know you're so busy, so I don't want to keep you any longer, but thank you for everything you do for our community, and specifically for GRACE and the families we serve. Thank you so much, Gio. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Go out for another car drive.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
4 hours, trust me. All right.
All right, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.